The Shrek franchise. We all know it, and we all love it, relatively speaking. In 2001, DreamWorks released Shrek, the first in what was to become one of the biggest franchises of the 21st century. Both a critical and commercial smash hit, it later won the first Oscar for Best Animated Film over Pixar's Monsters, Inc. But as we all know, Pixar are going to win almost every year after that, so suck it, DreamWorks! Sorry, I kinda got off track there. Anyway, here's just a brief recap of the first three Shreks. Spoilers. Part 1. Shrek the Ogre rescues Princess Fiona from her tower, finds that she's an ogre by night, falls in love with her anyway, and lives happily ever after. Or do they? Part 2. Shrek and Fiona meet Fiona's parents. Fiona's dead, and her fairy godmother both try to kill Shrek. Her dad has a change of heart, and they all live happily ever after. Or do they? Part 3. Fiona's dad dies. Shrek doesn't want to be king and fights a teenage artist to fill in for him. Meanwhile, Fiona's pregnant, and Prince Charming wants revenge for the death of the fairy godmother, but he's defeated. And Shrek and Fiona have kids, and they all live happily ever after. Or do they? I don't know, I mean, if you're like me, you'd stop caring after the second movie. But to be blunt, the first two Shreks were some of the most entertaining animated comedies of the past decade. The third one sucked. But it made over 300 million, so of course they made a Shrek 4. Also known as Shrek Forever After. Or according to the ads, the final chapter. Except that's bull. There'll be more. So, the fourth installment basically picks up where the third left off. Shrek is happily married and raising 3 children. His daily routines seem easy enough until he comes to the realization that he has to do them again the next day. And the day after that. And the day after that. Soon he comes to miss his old days as a feared ogre, running free and terrorizing the villagers. So Shrek signs a deal with Rumpelstiltskin to get just 1 day to himself, only to learn he's been transported into an alternate universe, where he doesn't exist and Rumpelstiltskin has taken over the kingdom. In order to save the day, he must find Fiona, now a warrior fighting for the ogres, and make her fall in love with him to break the curse and send him back home where George Bailey discovers that his truly is a wonderful life. Sorry, sorry. Where Shrek discovers that his truly is a wonderful life. It's the same movie. Now, as unoriginal and unnecessary as this movie is, there is one important factor that sets it apart from Shrek the Third. Simply put, it's not boring. Where Shrek the Third plods along for what feels like hours on end, Shrek 4 zips by in a matter of seconds. Which is strange considering they're around 90 minutes long each. But I digress. While Shrek 4 is nowhere in the same league as the first two, it's a considerable improvement over Part 3. You know, more, Madagascar than Madagascar 2. I've seen way too many of these. Now, I didn't really laugh more than once or twice when watching this, but the movie is still kind of engaging. For one thing, Rumpelstiltskin is a pretty decent villain, and I like the idea of Fiona as the leader of an ogre army. This is also where a few new voices come to play, namely John Hamm of Mad Men, Jane Link of Glee, and The Office's Craig Robinson, who gets the out of the words, Chimichanga Stand. I laughed, I'll admit it. And there are actually some neat action sequences, especially the final battle between the ogres and witches. Just go with it. Now, one interesting thing about this movie is that it has several nods to its predecessors, going so far as to play scenes from them during the credits. Which is nice, but it does remind you that you could have just stayed home and watched those. Nonetheless, Shrek Forever After is a minor effort, but I suppose you could do worse. A lot worse. I'm Jimmy B, and I give Shrek Forever After a 6 out of 10. For my next episode, I will be reviewing Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time.